we go. Joshua, thank you for joining. Thank you for being on camera. Bring your smiling face to the game. Salma and Kevin, Charlie, Caesar, Anjana, I apologize if I say that wrong. Some of the names are difficult. I'm trying to be respectful of the pronunciations. Landon, we're going to give until about 8:04 to start to introduce our guest speaker. Until then, I would love to learn a little bit about you, the student body, why you took this course. So I'm going to ask 3 questions. I'll call you at random. I asked the 3 questions of all the folks that come in here for the extra credit. First, what year are you in school? Second, what is your major? And third, why did you take a course in entrepreneurship? So Joshua, for being brave and going on camera, we'll start with you. Your year in school, your major, and why you took the course in entrepreneurship. Can you talk, Joshua? Can you hear me? Are you frozen? You look frozen. We'll come back to you. Daniel Cantor. Can you, your year in school, your major, and why you took a course on entrepreneurship?
Electrical engineering, and I decided to do this just because I've always been curious about what it really looks like to look at things from a different perspective and start from new.
Excellent. Well, you're about to learn what it's like to start from new from a great guest speaker here in just a few minutes. So thank you, Daniel. Landon Lasik, your year in school, your major, and why you took a course on entrepreneurship. Landon, are you there, buddy? Okay, we'll move on. Some of you might have technical difficulties. Luis Izquierdo. Luis, year in school, your major, and why you took a course on entrepreneurship.
Hi, I'm in Fulton Schools of Engineering. I am a biomedical engineer. And well, I chose this course because it was recommended by friends. And personally, I'm really in line with like a lot of the principles you guys teach. So I think it's just interesting to see how like entrepreneurial thinking can just like develop ideas overall.
Excellent. And you said you're an engineering student as well?
Yeah, I'm in biomedical engineering. I'm becoming a senior next semester.
What does a biomedical engineer do in the world of work? How do you apply that?
Well, it's more like we take principles of engineering and we apply them in like the set of like the human body, right? Like for example, electrical engineering could be applied for like action potentials, or like that's like the way that the muscles contract, for example. Or like you can apply electrical engineering like more traditionally by I don't know, putting a circuit in some like prosthetic or something. Like it's just engineering principles applied to the human body. That's pretty much it.
Okay, very interesting. Sounds like a growth opportunity with all the cool stuff going on in biotech. Joshua Ketchum, we're going to come back to you. Can you talk?
Yeah, sorry, it dropped me earlier.
Go ahead. Year in school, your major, and why you took a course in entrepreneurship.
This is my second degree, so my year in school is kind of tough to know. I think I'm a junior. I'm a mechanical engineering major, and I am just interested in starting my own business one day. I think entrepreneurship could be fun.
Excellent. Well, here's the message I keep delivering to all the sections that I speak to. This is my fourth or fifth. I've lost track. I've done enough semester, and I promise you, I have worked in big companies and small companies. I have worked in many different industries, and the skill that you're building in this course, which building a deck to tell a story, to raise money, is by far one of the most important skills you can learn in the whole world of business. Because whether you're leading an HR department, an operations department, a logistics department, marketing, where I work, you're constantly having to educate other people on what you're wanting to go do, influence them to believe in you, often influence them to give you money, and then ultimately go and execute. And the best way to do that is through a PowerPoint presentation, for better or worse. So while this stuff may seem light and fluffy to engineers out there, I promise you these are hugely valuable skills you're building, so take them seriously. We're going to do one more. Liliana, I applaud you for coming on camera. Your year in school, your major, and why you took this course. You're on mute. Let's come off mute, Liliana.
Oh, sorry. I'm currently a junior. I'm a psych major. I'm interested in going to nursing school, and I took this course because I'm also interested in starting a business eventually.
Excellent. Thank you, Liliana, for coming on camera and being so brave to tell your story. So with that, it is now 8:04. We're going to introduce our guest speaker. So I've been doing this for a couple of years, and in that period, I've brought on a lot of my past colleagues from great companies I've worked at. This is the first person I've brought on that I haven't worked with personally. In fact, Steve is someone I've only known for about a month, and this is the way the world of work works. If you're out there trying to create opportunities, is you're constantly trying to meet people, open doors, find new ways to create opportunities for yourself, for your company, and for others. So I met Steve a little bit ago, and he had an incredibly cool story about being an entrepreneur. He started a basketball academy that he's grown into a flourishing business that operates across the entire United States. So before I introduce him and let him speak about his experience, I'm going to share a pretty cool video here. Let me share my screen of a fairly famous individual who many of you will know if you follow NBA basketball, and the New York Knicks, who are in the playoffs. In the NBA.
You don't have any sound, Brian.
Can you not hear it? Can you guys hear it? No? Okay, bummer. I don't know how to make that work. I apologize. So basically what we have there is Mike Brown, head coach of the New York Knicks, congratulating Steve for running his business for 20 years after Steve coached his kids and formed a personal relationship with the head coach of the New York Knicks and calling him out for doing a great job. So this is where entrepreneurship can lead you to, having personal relationships with a guy who's being, featured on SportsCenter every night. So with that, I apologize we didn't get the audio. I'm going to turn it over to Steve, who runs the National Basketball Academy out of his office in Northern Ohio. Steve, love for you to introduce yourself, talk about your background, and when you want to say next slide, I will drive.
Okay. Well, first, I appreciate everybody jumping on and giving me some of your time. I'll give you a little bit of background on me and TNBA. I'll kind of walk you through, where we're at now, how we started and how I got into it. I did not start as an entrepreneur, but I still remember the best advice I got really, really early on. Really close friend of mine, kind of a father figure, actually told me, when I graduated college as a finance and operations dual major, said, listen, do something you love to do and then find a way to get paid for it. Right. So, if you look at the Mike Brown video, like the funny story about that is, and I shared with Brian yesterday, I was actually still trying to play professionally overseas, but I was playing semi-pro basketball in the ABA at the time. When I got a voicemail and said, hey, Steve, this is Mike Brown from the Cleveland Cavaliers. I had an opportunity for you, blah, blah, blah. Give me a call. And I still remember like my heartbeat when I heard it. I was like, I'm about to get a 10-day contract. So I called him and, long story short, he was like, hey, my son's in 5th grade. We just moved here. I heard you guys are the best trainers in town, and he wanted me to train. So unfortunately, I didn't get my shot in the league. But, if I look at where I started off in Key Bank when I first graduated college. Like I said, I was a finance and operations major. Had an internship with McDonald Investments, and they hired me in their finance management associate program, which was an 18-month program where you're meant to rotate every 2 to 3 months through different parts of the bank and learn how all the different parts work together as a whole, right? Like that's the goal in the 18-month program. While that was going on, though, I still loved basketball. I was a 2,000-point scorer in high school. I played 4 years of college basketball on scholarship. it was my passion. It was still in my heart. And I had trained kids even when I was in high school. I trained, younger kids. So while I was working at the bank going through this program at nights, I started training kids, in my free time, 22, 23 years old. At that time, it was a hobby, it was a passion, and it was extra cash. Right. So, what I learned as I was going through that was there was a huge need. There was a huge need for basketball trainers that, number one, had a legitimate basketball background, but more importantly, could teach and relate to players of all different skill levels and all different, age levels, gender. And to me, it was just, it was just what I loved, right? It was easy. So it didn't feel like work, right? So ended up getting hired into the real estate capital group at KeyBank after my program. So I had good evaluations. My mentors, spent a lot of time and energy training me. But the basketball stuff still, it was growing, and it was where my heart was. Around that same time when I got hired into the real estate group, a group called the National Basketball Academy, who was only about 8 months old, walked into my gym that I was training kids in. And they started asking a lot of questions, because even though like I actually had a bigger business at the time, I already had up like almost 90 clients. They had some higher profile clients. They had trained some NBA players like Nene Hilario, Leandro Barbosa. And so they came up with the idea, like, listen, quit the bank, come do this with us. Be our guard expert. Because my first partner was 6'9" guy. He's in the Bowling Green Hall of Fame. Played overseas in Turkey. Shane Klarminski. And like, man, you could be like the next guy, right, on the ground floor. And I'm like, wow, I mean, it sounds great, but I spent so much time and energy working my way, to a good position in the banking world. I wasn't ready to just jump in with both feet. I was like, you know what, let's entertain this for 6 months and see where it goes. And to me, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I really haven't tried. Like, I've just kind of like been looking at this as a hobby and kind of limped my way into people referring kids to me. I'm like, but I haven't gone all in and tried to make this into a business yet. And so I remember like going to different parents and people and saying, all right, if I wanted to do this full time, what would I need to do? And they were like, well, you need to market, you need to advertise, you need to get your name out there. Social media wasn't as big of a presence. This is 23 years ago. But they're like, you need to get more information out there and run bigger programs, not just train individually, not small groups, like, teams. And so I got some good advice from some of my current clients, parents. And so I gave it a shot. And I was about 3 months in, and I'm working 40 hours at the bank, 40 hours on the floor, kind of busting at both seams. I mean, I remember a normal day for me was get up at 5, work out, hit the RTA, take it downtown to go to the bank, get to my office at 7 o'clock, finish at 4, back on the RTA home, hit the ground, in my gym at 5, train from 5 to 10, and then just, reboot and do the same thing the next day. And at that breaking point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to talk to my mentors at the bank and just see, like, because even though they had invested a lot of time and money in me, they were more than just, colleagues or my boss. Like, they were true mentors. And so I laid it out to them. I said, listen, I have this opportunity to be an entrepreneur and, get on the ground floor of a basketball company. What do you think? And I give them a lot of credit, 3 for 3. All 3 of my mentors told me, you got to go. Like, you have to try it. And my immediate boss, he was probably the funniest of the 3. He was like, listen, Steve, I'm going to be honest with you. If you do this, your evaluations are so good. If you fall on your face, the bank will probably hire you back for more money because you'd have a unique type of experience at your age. So again, I give them a lot of credit. They really made it very easy me to try something that had a lot more risk, right? Staying at the bank was the safe play. Jumping both feet into the ground floor of a company like that was scary, right? It was scary because, you know, in the very beginning, me and Shane were in charge of everything. There was another partner that was more like the business infrastructure person, but we were, you know, doing the mailings, folding the trifolds, licking the envelopes, doing you talk about grassroots marketing, door to door, emails, texts, everything. And what we started to learn was that if we were going to make this into a real career, we almost had to, reverse engineer it. I know I got a lot of engineers on this call, right? So I'm probably the worst person at math, even though I have a finance degree on this call. But, when we thought about reverse engineering it, we thought about, all right, what do we want the company to be worth? Or what do we want to make? Right? Like, okay, what do I want to make in the next 3 to 5 years? And so if I'm spending this much time on the floor and this many hours a week, I've got to figure out a way to maximize my profit per hour, right? Or my revenue per hour. And what it did was it led us into revenue streams. So, Brian, if you go to, is the fourth or fifth slide where it says income totals by bucket.
Yep.
So this was actually a 7-month actual financial statement. But what it shows is it shows the different revenue streams that we created early on. So it started off with just training, right? Like individual, small group training, team training. Like that was the low hanging fruit. That was easy. And then training led into us forming a couple of teams, right? Teams that would play in local events, and the financial model for the teams was probably where we failed the most early on, because we didn't budget right. We didn't have, true expenses, and I guess one piece of advice I could give entrepreneurs is don't be afraid to fail. I've been doing this for 24 years and, I'm in a company of, 23 full-time equivalents now. And I can assure you that no one in the company has failed more than me. No one. But when you look at how things organically developed, when we did perfect the team model, we learned that helped us get more kids into our camp programs. Partnershiping with schools, CYO groups, gave us better distribution channels for marketing, right? And then teams led us into the event and the league space. So, they all kind of ended up feeding each other, right? And then we started to learn, like, all right, well, what is the life cycle of the client? If I have a kid that's starting as a kindergartner, right? Is there a program that we can run that could service a kid that's valuable, right, to the parent? So a lot of it, we learned again by just starting, just trying, researching in the market. And when we developed these 5 different revenue streams, we got our first big account, which was the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the Cavs were, NBA program. And when you think about at the time, like this was, way back. This is like, 2006 is when we first got the Cavs program. They stunk, right? So they were just looking for an outlet to sell tickets, right? Well, what happened was we were so good at our job and using the Cavs brand as a partner, we built a program for them that went from 0 to over 12,000 kids, right? Over like an 8-year time frame. And even when they were bad. Now, when they were good, that's when it's easy, right? So like you look now, we've grown. At one point, we had as many as 11 NBA teams, and then we consolidated. And what's interesting was we actually were a more profitable company with 5 NBA teams than we were with 11, right? And some of you are going to go like, well, how is that possible? More teams, more money. We learned a lot, right? Like sometimes, just because you have, the means to grow doesn't mean you should, right? And so for us, it was, again, learning from our mistakes. And when we consolidated, we were able to control the quality way better than when we were just putting out fires as we went. So, you know, when I look at, you know, where we were when we got our first, NBA program, and then grew to 11 programs, and then consolidated, as a small business, right? That now we range on the revenue side anywhere from 5 to 6 million, in revenue a year. That's to me, like, to come from zero, right? To put the first dollar in the bank and now see where we've come. And what's interesting now is you see a lot of private equity groups climbing into our space, where, I don't know. I don't know where we'll be in 3 to 5 years, but what I do know is I want us to be the best basketball company in the world, right? Whether it's training, camps, events. And if somebody's doing something better than us, to me, there's no egos in this business, right? Bury your ego, learn, get better. And that's truly how you're going to grow. And the reality for us is what's helped our growth is the quality of people that we have around us, right? I guess if I had to look back at, and again, identify what are the biggest areas where we learn from our mistakes, honestly, it's hiring the wrong people, right? When you find someone that works hard, that has a vision, that has a passion, man, invest money into your people, right? Because, just like a basketball team, you're only as strong as the team, right? Like TNBA is only as strong as the market directors we have in each one of our markets. Which, if you look at the presentation, we're in Cleveland, which is our biggest market. So we've separated into two. We're in Columbus, Houston, Indiana, Milwaukee, Orlando, Tampa, and we just started in Nashville. So, we're far from done. We've got a relatively young ownership group. I'm 46. My one partner is 51, and my other partner is 42. So I think that we have a lot of opportunities to continue to get better. But hopefully that's a good snapshot of what TNBA is, kind of where I came from and how it started. I will say that I have plenty of time if people have questions or want to debate or talk through anything. Minus the Cavs losing in the finals, I'm not going to speak on that, or in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm not going to speak on that. And then after the call, Brian, if you want to share my information with the group, happy to talk to anybody one-on-one if they ever want to pick my brain.
Well, Steve, thank you. What I want to do is capture what I think are the 3 or 4 critical things that we've talked about in a lot of the lectures that Steve has lived. First and foremost, the advantage of youth that you all enjoy and the ability to take risks while you're young. Every year you get older, it gets harder and harder to take the risks that Steve took when he's young. People do it, and you can certainly do it, but I can promise you, as you get older and more established, the cliff feels bigger. When you're 23, 24, 25, like Steve was when he started, you have this like sense of like the whole world is in front of you when you can fail miserably. And like his boss told him, you could come right back to your job. It's harder to do that when you're 45. Right? It gets harder to do that when you have a wife and a kid and a mortgage to come right back to your job. Secondly, Steve admitted it's not always best to grow in every single market. He's more profitable with less NBA partnerships than more. You'll see this in many of the lectures we give and many of the companies I've worked for. People try to expand in areas where they shouldn't expand and suffer for it. And then finally, the most important thing Steve said, and this is why I brought Steve on, because I could tell he was this kind of person when I first met him, is the whole thing you guys are doing that is so important for you to understand as engineers, especially, is you can't succeed without surrounding yourself by great people. No matter how great you are and how smart you are as an engineer, you look at Elon Musk, behind him is dozens and dozens and dozens of brilliant other engineers building rockets and cars and Starlink and so on. And behind Steve is, dozens of great people, as he's explained. So as you think about yourself being an entrepreneur, you will not be able to do the whole thing by yourself. And the entire way you get to where Steve is to build a $5 million company through blood, sweat, and tears is by surrounding yourself with great people, treating them fairly, treating them with dignity and respect. And believe me, that sounds easy, but when you get in the real world, you'll find it's hard to both find those people and to treat them with the dignity and respect they deserve every single day. But that's what it takes to build what Steve has built. So with that, I wanted to capture the three main points that I thought he really captured well, and make sure you all take that away. I'm going to open up for questions because Steve's got this incredible story that's very unique in the world of entrepreneurship to have done what he's done. Any questions before we let Steve get on with this day? And then again, I will send out in the announcement tomorrow, Steve's LinkedIn. You can connect with him and his email if anybody wants to follow up. Because again, I'll mention this to you guys. I've sent my link out to people on these lectures, and I've had maybe a half dozen of you connect with me. The most important thing to do in these things is build your network, is meet other good people and bring them into your network. So do not be shy about connecting with Steve and I. So with that, any questions for Steve about his experience building his business? We got someone who joined us right now at 24 minutes in. That's a bold move. That's a bold move. 24 minutes late, you're walking into the lecture. Okay, we'll let you in, get your screenshot and get your extra credit. Well, I appreciate you all joining. I understand there's no questions. I think Steve did a great job of laying out his journey for us in 22 minutes. With that, I will leave it to you all. Please get your screenshots and get your extra credit. Thank you all for joining. And Steve, thank you for sharing your incredible story. That was hopefully very helpful for all of you guys to see what it takes to get this done at that level.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Are you still there? Hello? Hello? How do I refresh it?